Imagine finding a lost dog and discovering it belongs to the most captivating woman you've ever met. Harper Lane thought she was just rescuing a stray, but sometimes the universe has bigger plans. What starts as a simple good deed becomes a journey that changes two broken hearts forever. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and let me know in the comments what state you're watching from. The rain was coming down hard that Tuesday evening when I first saw him. A golden retriever, soaking wet and limping along the edge of Pine Creek Road. My headlights caught his amber eyes for just a second before he bolted toward the forest. I pulled over without thinking. "Hey, boy," I called out, stepping into the downpour. My camera bag got drenched instantly, but I didn't care. The dog was hurt, scared, and completely alone. It took 20 minutes of patient coaxing with half a granola bar before he let me get close enough to see the deep cut on his front paw. No collar, no tags, just matted fur and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. "Come on, sweetheart," I whispered, wrapping him in my jacket. "Let's get you somewhere warm." My cottage felt different with him there. For months, it had been nothing but silence and rejection emails from photography clients. The creative drought that started after my last exhibition flopped had turned into something deeper, a questioning of everything I thought I knew about my talent. But watching this dog curl up by my fireplace, finally safe, something stirred in my chest that I hadn't felt in ages. I named him Scout. The next morning, I posted on every local Facebook group and community board I could find. Found, golden retriever, male, approximately 3 to 4 years old. Found near Pine Creek Road. Please share. Days passed. Scout and I fell into an easy rhythm. Morning walks through the Oregon woods. Afternoons where he'd nap while I edited photos. Evenings by the fire. He had this way of looking at me when I got lost in my own head, like he understood that I was just as lost as he'd been. "You're good company, you know that?" I told him on our 4th morning together, scratching behind his ears as we watched the sunrise paint the mountains gold. He wagged his tail and pressed closer to my leg. That's when my phone buzzed. "Hi, I saw your post about the golden retriever. I think you might belong to someone I know. Can I come by this afternoon?" My heart sank a little. I'd grown attached to Scout, but I knew this day would come. Someone was missing him. Someone loved him. I typed back, "Of course. I'll be home after 2 p.m. The rest of the morning dragged. Scout seemed to sense something was different. He stayed closer than usual, those intelligent eyes watching my every move. At exactly 2:15, I heard the rumble of a motorcycle in my driveway. Through the window, I watched a woman in a black leather jacket swing her leg over a vintage Harley. Even from a distance, there was something about the way she moved, confident, but careful, like someone who'd learned to be cautious with the world. She pulled off her helmet, and I felt my breath catch. Dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders, sharp cheekbones, full lips, and eyes the color of storm clouds. She was beautiful in that effortless way that makes you forget how to form words. But it was the sadness in her expression that really got to me. Even from 50 feet away, I could see it. The kind of grief that settles into your bones and changes how you carry yourself. Scout's ears perked up. He was staring out the window, tail wagging tentatively. "Do you know her, boy?" I asked softly. The woman walked up my front steps with measured steps, like she was steeling herself for something difficult. When she knocked, it was gentle but firm. I opened the door, and up close, she was even more striking. But those gray eyes were rimmed with red, and her hands were shaking slightly. "Hi," she said, her voice rough around the edges. "I'm Riley Monroe. I think you might have my dog." Before I could respond, Scout pushed past me and launched himself at her legs. "Ranger!" The word came out as a sob. Riley dropped to her knees, and Scout, Ranger, was all over her, licking her face, whimpering, tail going crazy. She buried her face in his fur, and her shoulders started shaking. "I thought I'd lost you forever," she whispered into his coat. "I thought you were gone too." I stood there, feeling like I was intruding on something sacred. The love between them was so obvious, so pure, that it made my chest ache. When Riley finally looked up at me, tears were streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you," she said. "You have no idea what this means to me." He's all I have left. Something in the way she said it made me step aside without thinking. Would you like to come in? I heard myself ask. You both look like you could use a minute. Riley hesitated, glancing back at her motorcycle, then at Ranger, who was still pressed against her legs like he was afraid she might disappear. I don't want to impose. You're not, I said quickly. I'm Harper, by the way, and honestly, I could use the company. It's been just me and Ranger, for the past few days. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Scout's not a bad name. He always was good at exploring. She followed me inside, Ranger glued to her side. I made coffee while she sat on my couch, running her hands through his fur like she was memorizing the feel of it. How long has he been missing? I asked, settling into the chair across from her. 3 weeks. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I was working late in my garage. I restore motorcycles. And I guess I didn't latch the gate properly. When I came out the next morning, he was gone. She took a shaky sip of coffee. I've been driving around every day, posting flyers, calling shelters. I was starting to think, hey, I said softly. He's okay. He's here. He's safe. Riley nodded, but fresh tears started falling. I can't lose him too. I can't. The pain in her voice was so raw that I found myself leaning forward. Two? She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. Ranger seemed to sense her distress. He put his head on her lap and looked up at her with those soulful eyes. My wife, Riley said finally. Sarah. She died 8 months ago. Car accident. The words hit me like a physical blow. Riley, I'm so sorry. Ranger was her dog originally. She rescued him as a puppy right after we got married. He was with her in the car. Her voice broke completely. He survived. She didn't. I felt tears prick my own eyes. No wonder he'd looked so lost when I found him. No wonder Riley looked like she was barely holding herself together. He's been my lifeline, she continued, scratching behind his ears. The only thing that gets me up in the morning. When he disappeared, I thought maybe the universe was telling me it was time to give up. But you didn't give up, I said. You kept looking. Every single day. She met my eyes, and I saw something fierce there beneath the grief. Sarah always said Ranger had a sixth sense about people, that he could tell who had good hearts. She looked around my cottage, at the photography equipment, the cozy furniture, the way Ranger had made himself at home by the fireplace. Looks like she was right, Riley said softly. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Ranger sprawl contentedly between us. The afternoon light was starting to fade, casting everything in a warm golden glow. I should probably head home, Riley said eventually, but she made no move to get up. You don't have to, I found myself saying. I mean, if you want to stay for dinner, I was just going to make pasta, nothing fancy. Riley looked surprised. You don't even know me. I know you love your dog. I know you've been through hell and you're still fighting. I know you have kind eyes even when you're hurting. I paused. That's enough for me. For the first time since she'd arrived, Riley's smile reached her eyes. Okay, she said, but only if you let me help cook. As we moved to the kitchen, Ranger following close behind, I caught myself stealing glances at Riley, the way she moved with quiet grace, how she unconsciously tucked her hair behind her ear when she concentrated, the small scar on her left hand that looked like it came from working with tools. So you restore motorcycles? I asked, handing her a wooden spoon. Classic bikes mostly. Harleys, Indians, some vintage European models. Her voice grew stronger when she talked about her work. It's satisfying, you know, taking something broken and making it beautiful again. I can understand that, I said. I'm a photographer. Or trying to be, anyway. Trying to be. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. Let's just say the last few months haven't been great for my confidence. Riley stopped stirring the sauce and looked at me. What kind of photography? Landscapes, mostly. Some portraits. I had this exhibition last year that was supposed to be my big break, but I shrugged. Turns out promising and successful are two very different things. Can I see some of your work? I hesitated. I hadn't shown my photos to anyone in months, but something about Riley's genuine interest made me nod toward my laptop on the counter. She wiped her hands and scrolled through my portfolio while I pretended to focus on the pasta. I watched her face in my peripheral vision, looking for any sign of polite disinterest. Instead, she went very still. "Harper," she said quietly, "these are incredible. You don't have to— No, I'm serious." She turned the laptop toward me, showing a photo I'd taken of the Oregon coast at sunrise, this one especially. The way you captured the light, it's like you can see the soul of the place. Something warm unfurled in my chest. "Thank you." "Sarah would have loved these," Riley said, and there was no sadness in her voice this time, just appreciation. She was always trying to get me to see beauty in everyday things. "You have that same gift." We ate dinner as the sun set, talking about everything and nothing. Riley told me about growing up in Portland, how she'd learned to work on bikes from her grandfather, how she'd met Sarah at a coffee shop where Sarah was sketching strangers. I found myself sharing things I hadn't told anyone, how I'd moved to this cottage to find inspiration, how sometimes I felt like I was taking pictures of a world I couldn't quite connect with anymore. "Maybe you just haven't found the right subject yet," Riley said, refilling our wine glasses. "Maybe," I agreed, but I was looking at her when I said it. It was almost 10 when Riley finally stood to leave. Ranger seemed reluctant to go, looking back and forth between us like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Thank you," Riley said at the door, "for taking care of him, for dinner, for this. Thank you for trusting me with your story." We stood there for a moment, neither of us quite ready to say goodbye. The porch light cast soft shadows across Riley's face, and I found myself memorizing the curve of her jaw, the way her eyes reflected the light. "Maybe," Riley started, then stopped. "Would it be okay if I brought Ranger by sometime? For a visit? He seems to like it here." My heart did a little skip. I'd love that. "He's welcome anytime. You both are." Riley smiled, a real smile this time, one that transformed her entire face. "I'll call you," she said, swinging her leg over the motorcycle. I watched her ride away, Ranger's carrier secured behind her, until the taillights disappeared around the bend. Back inside, my cottage felt different again. Not empty this time, but full of possibility. I picked up my camera for the first time in weeks and scrolled through the photos I'd taken of Ranger over the past few days. In every single one, he was looking toward the door, like he was waiting for someone, like he knew she was coming. 3 days passed before Riley called. I was editing photos when my phone rang, and I embarrassed myself by answering on the first ring. "Harper, it's Riley. I was wondering, would this afternoon work for that visit?" "Absolutely," I said, trying to sound casual instead of like I'd been hoping she'd call every hour since she left. "Great. Fair warning, though. I'm bringing lunch. It's the least I can do after you fed us the other night." An hour later, I heard the familiar rumble of her Harley. This time, I didn't wait inside. I was on the porch before she'd even turned off the engine. Ranger bounded out of his carrier and straight to me, tail wagging like we were old friends, which I supposed we were. "Hey, buddy," I laughed, scratching his ears. "Miss me?" "He's been restless since we left," Riley said, pulling a paper bag from her saddlebag, kept going to the door and whining. She was wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater today instead of the leather jacket. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, and she looked lighter somehow, like some of the weight she'd been carrying had shifted. "How are you doing?" I asked as we walked inside. "Better," she said, and seemed surprised by her own answer. "I actually slept through the night for the first time in weeks. I think having Ranger back safe made all the difference." We spread lunch out on my kitchen table, sandwiches from a local deli, homemade cookies, and coffee that smelled like heaven. "These are from Sarah's recipe," Riley said, unwrapping the cookies. "Chocolate chip with sea salt. She always said the secret was using brown butter." I took a bite and nearly moaned. "These are incredible." She was an amazing baker, always experimenting with new flavors. Riley's smile was soft, nostalgic. Our kitchen was constantly covered in flour. I noticed she was talking about Sarah more easily today, without that sharp edge of pain that had been there before. "What was she like?" I asked gently. Riley's eyes lit up, curious about everything. She'd see a bird she didn't recognize and spend hours researching it. She collected vintage postcards and knew the history behind every single one. She could make friends with anyone, cashiers, bus drivers, random people at the park. She sounds wonderful. She was. Riley broke off a piece of cookie and gave it to Ranger, who was sitting hopefully beside her chair. She would have liked you, I think. She always said I needed more friends who weren't covered in motor oil. And do you? Need more friends, I mean? Riley considered this. I used to think I didn't. Sarah was enough. She was my best friend, my partner, my whole world. After she died, I just shut down. Stopped seeing people. Stopped going places we used to go together. She looked around my cottage, taking in the afternoon light streaming through the windows. But being here the other day, talking to you, it reminded me that connection doesn't have to hurt. That maybe I can care about people without feeling like I'm betraying her memory. Something warm settled in my chest. I'm glad you feel that way. After lunch, we took Ranger for a walk through the woods behind my cottage. The October air was crisp and the leaves were just starting to turn, splashes of gold and red against the evergreens. This is beautiful, Riley said, stopping at a clearing where you could see the mountains in the distance. How did you find this place? Dumb luck, mostly. I was driving through Oregon last year, trying to figure out what to do with my life, and I saw the for rent sign. The landlord was this sweet elderly woman who said she'd rather have a tenant who'd appreciate the land than someone who'd pay more. And do you? Appreciate it? I looked around at the forest, the way the light filtered through the branches, the absolute peace of it all. I'm learning to, I said. I moved here thinking inspiration would just hit me, you know? Like being in a beautiful place would automatically make me a better photographer. But it doesn't work that way. What does work? I watched Ranger chase a squirrel up a tree, his joy so pure and uncomplicated. I think maybe it's about connection. Finding something that matters to you and capturing that feeling, not just the image. Riley nodded thoughtfully. Sarah used to say something similar about her art. She was a painter. Watercolors mostly. She said the best paintings weren't about perfect technique, they were about emotion. I'd love to see her work sometime. I'd like that too, Riley said softly. I haven't looked at her paintings since. But maybe it's time. We walked in comfortable silence for a while, Ranger running ahead and circling back to check on us. There was something so natural about being with Riley, like we'd known each other for years instead of days. Can I ask you something? Riley said as we headed back toward the cottage. Of course. The other night, when you invited me to stay for dinner, why? You really didn't know anything about me. I thought about it. Honestly, you looked like you needed a friend, and I guess I needed one too. Lonely? Stuck, I said. I've been living in my own head for months, overthinking everything. Having you and Ranger here reminded me what it feels like to just be present with someone. Riley stopped walking and turned to face me. I know what you mean. I've been so focused on surviving each day that I forgot what it felt like to actually live one. The intensity in her gray eyes made my heart skip. We were standing close enough that I could smell her perfume, something warm and woodsy that suited her perfectly. Harper, she said quietly. Yeah? Thank you. For reminding me that I'm still alive. Before I could respond, Ranger came bounding back and crashed into both of us, breaking the moment but somehow making it sweeter. Back at the cottage, Riley helped me upload photos from my camera to my laptop. She had a good eye, pointing out shots I'd overlooked and asking thoughtful questions about my process. This one, she said, stopping at a photo I'd taken of Ranger sleeping by the fireplace. There's something special about it. I looked at the image, the way the firelight played across his golden fur, the complete peace in his expression, the sense of safety and home. He looks happy, I said. He looks loved, Riley corrected. You captured that, the feeling of being cared for. Our eyes met across the laptop screen, and I felt that flutter in my chest again. I should probably head home, Riley said, but she made no move to pack up. You could stay for dinner again, I offered. I mean, if you want to. No pressure. Riley smiled. I was hoping you'd ask. This time, we cooked together from the start. Riley turned out to be surprisingly good in the kitchen, moving with the same confident precision she probably used when working on motorcycles. So, What got you into bike restoration? I asked, watching her expertly dice onions. My grandfather. He had this old Indian Scout that he'd been fixing for 20 years. Every summer when I visited, we'd work on it together. I think he kept finding new things wrong with it, just so we'd have an excuse to spend time in the garage. Did you ever get it running? Riley's smile was soft with memory. The summer I turned 16, we took it for a ride around his neighborhood and I was hooked. There's something magical about bringing a machine back to life, you know? Taking something that's been forgotten and making it purr again. Is that what you did with your Harley? That one's special. It was Sarah's wedding gift to me. She found it in a junkyard and had it restored in secret. Took her 6 months and every favor she could call in. Riley's voice caught slightly. She said she wanted to give me something that would last forever, something that would always bring me back to her. I reached over and squeezed her hand without thinking. That's beautiful. Riley looked down at our joined hands, and I started to pull away, worried I'd overstepped, but she held on. It is, she said. And for the longest time, I couldn't write it because it hurt too much. But lately I think she'd want me to remember the love, not just the loss. We stood there in my kitchen, hands linked, something shifting between us that felt bigger than friendship, but smaller than I dared to name. Riley, I started. I know, she said softly. I feel it too. Is that okay? She was quiet for a long moment, and I could practically see her thinking. I don't know, deciding, she said finally. But I know I don't want to stop coming here. I don't want to stop talking to you. Then don't. It's complicated, Harper. I'm still grieving. I'm still figuring out who I am without her. I'm not asking you to figure anything out, I said. I'm just asking you to keep being here. Whatever this is, wherever it goes, we don't have to rush it. Riley squeezed my hand. Okay. Okay? Okay, I'll keep coming here. We'll see what happens. Relief flooded through me. Good. Because I really like having you around, even though I'm a mess, especially because you're a mess. We can be messes together. Riley laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from her, and the sound was like music. We finished cooking dinner, and this time when Riley left, it didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like, see you soon. Tomorrow? She asked, securing Ranger in his carrier. Tomorrow, I confirmed. I watched her ride away again, but this time I wasn't sad. This time, I was already looking forward to the sound of her motorcycle in my driveway. Inside, I picked up my camera and scrolled through the photos I'd taken during our walk. In one of them, Riley was crouched down petting Ranger, her face soft with affection, completely unguarded. It was the most beautiful photograph I'd ever taken. Riley started coming by every day. It began as visits for Ranger, but soon we both stopped pretending that was the only reason. She'd show up with coffee in the mornings, or I'd text her photos from my walks, and she'd appear an hour later with lunch. We fell into an easy rhythm. Mornings were for exploring the woods with Ranger, afternoons for working, me editing photos while she sketched motorcycle designs in a worn leather notebook. Evenings were for cooking together and talking until the fire burned low. You know, I said one Thursday morning as we watched Ranger chase leaves in the wind, I've taken more photos in the past week than I did in the previous 3 months. Good photos? Riley asked, settling beside me on the fallen log that had become our favorite resting spot. I think so. Different, anyway. I showed her my camera's display. Look at this one. It was a shot of her from yesterday. She was working on her bike in my driveway, completely absorbed, a streak of grease on her cheek and her hair falling across her face. Riley stared at the image for a long moment. I look beautiful, I finished softly. She glanced at me, something vulnerable in her expression. I was going to say alive, that too. We'd been dancing around this thing between us for a week now. Moments where our hands would brush, conversations that felt like confessions, looks that lasted just a beat too long. Neither of us had named it yet, but it was there, growing stronger each day. Harper, Riley said, her voice careful. Can I tell you something? Always. I haven't felt this way about anyone since Sarah. I didn't think I ever would again. My heart started beating faster. What way? Like I want to know everything about you. Like your happiness matters to me. Like... She took a shaky breath. Like I'm falling for you. The words hung in the air between us, honest and terrifying and perfect. "Riley," I whispered. "I know it's complicated. I know I'm still figuring things out. But I needed you to know." I reached for her hand, threading our fingers together. "I'm falling for you too." Relief flooded her face. "Yeah?" "Yeah. Have been since that first night when you cried over Ranger. Maybe even before that, when I saw you get off your bike and thought you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen." Riley laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. "I was a mess that night. You were perfect." She leaned closer, and I thought she might kiss me. Instead, she rested her forehead against mine. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Of what?" "Of feeling this much again, of losing it, of not being ready." I understood. The fear was written all over her face, mixed with hope and longing and something that looked like guilt. "We don't have to rush anything," I said. "We can go as slow as you need. What if I'm never ready? What if I can't get past the guilt of moving on? Then we'll figure it out together." "But Riley, loving someone new doesn't mean you loved Sarah any less. It just means your heart is big enough for both." She pulled back to look at me, searching my face. "How are you so wise?" "I'm not. I'm just falling in love with you and trying not to mess it up." This time she did kiss me, soft and tentative at first, then deeper when I kissed her back. Her lips were warm, and she tasted like the coffee we'd shared that morning. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Wow," Riley said. "Good wow or bad wow?" "Definitely good wow." She smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. "Really, really good wow." Ranger chose that moment to come crashing through the underbrush, covered in leaves and looking incredibly pleased with himself. We laughed and pulled apart, but Riley kept hold of my hand. "So what now?" she asked as we started walking back. "Now we see what happens. No pressure, no expectations. Just us. I'd like that." That afternoon, Riley surprised me by asking if I wanted to see her workshop. "It's nothing fancy," she said as we pulled up to a converted garage behind a small craftsman house. "But it's where I spend most of my time." The space was incredible. Organized chaos with vintage motorcycles in various states of restoration, tools hung precisely on pegboards, and the smell of motor oil and metal polish in the air. "Riley, this is amazing," I said, running my hand along the tank of a beautiful blue Harley. "That's a 1947 knucklehead," she said, pride evident in her voice. "Original paint, mostly original parts. The owner's grandfather rode it in World War II. And you're bringing it back to life, trying to. Some of these bikes have been sitting in barns for decades. It's like archaeological work sometimes, figuring out what's original and what's been cobbled together over the years." I watched her move through the space, pointing out different projects, explaining the history of each bike. This was Riley in her element, confident, passionate, completely in control. "Can I take some photos?" I asked. "Of the bikes?" "Of you. Workin'. If that's okay." Riley hesitated. "I'm not very photogenic when I'm covered in grease." "I think you're beautiful when you're covered in grease." She blushed but nodded. "Okay. But don't blame me if they turn out terrible." They didn't turn out terrible. They turned out extraordinary. I spent the next hour capturing Riley in her workshop, the concentration on her face as she adjusted a carburetor, the graceful way she moved around the bikes, the small smile that appeared when she got a stubborn part to cooperate. "Let me see," she said, when I finally put the camera down. I scrolled through the images, watching her face as she saw herself through my eyes. "These are incredible, Harper. I look like an artist," I finished. "Because that's what you are." I never thought of it that way. I just fix things. You create beauty from broken pieces. That's art. Riley was quiet for a moment, studying the photos. Sarah always said I was an artist, but I never believed her. "What do you believe now?" That maybe she was right, and maybe you are too. We were interrupted by Ranger barking at something outside. Through the window, I saw a woman getting out of a silver sedan. Riley's entire body went tense. "Shit. What's wrong?" "That's Linda." Sarah's mom. The woman was in her 60s, well-dressed, with the same dark hair Sarah must have had. She was walking toward the workshop with purpose. "Riley," she called out. "I saw your bike. Are you in there?" Riley looked panicked. "She doesn't know about this. About you. Do you want me to leave?" "No. Yes. I don't know." Riley ran her hands through her hair. "She's been checking on me since Sarah died, but she's very protective of Sarah's memory." The workshop door opened before we could decide anything. "Riley, honey, I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd—" Linda stopped short when she saw me. "Oh, I didn't realize you had company." "Linda, this is Harper," Riley said, her voice carefully neutral. "Harper, this is Linda, Sarah's mother." "Nice to meet you," I said, extending my hand. Linda shook it, but her eyes were sharp, assessing. "Are you a client?" "I'm a friend," I said simply. "Harper's a photographer," Riley added. "She was just taking some pictures of the bikes." Linda's gaze moved between us, and I could practically see her putting pieces together, the way Riley and I were standing close together, the slight flush in Riley's cheeks, the intimacy that was probably obvious to anyone who looked. "I see," Linda said coolly. "Well, I don't want to interrupt. I just wanted to drop off some of Sarah's things I found in the attic." She handed Riley a small box. "Her art supplies. I thought you might want them." Riley's hands shook slightly as she took the box. "Thank you." "Sarah would want them to be used," Linda said, but her eyes were on me when she said it. She always believed in supporting other artists. The subtext was clear. I know what's happening here, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. "I should go," Linda said. "Riley, call me soon. We haven't talked in weeks." "I will," Riley promised. After Linda left, Riley sank onto a workbench, still holding the box. "That was awkward," she said. "She's protective of you. That's not a bad thing. She's protective of Sarah's memory. There's a difference." Riley looked up at me. "She thinks I'm betraying Sarah by moving on." "Are you?" "I don't know. Sometimes it feels like it. Other times it feels like Sarah would want me to be happy." I sat beside her on the workbench. "What do you think Sarah would say if she could see us right now?" Riley was quiet for a long moment, considering. "She'd probably tease me about falling for a photographer. She always said I had a type, creative women who see the world differently. And she'd want to know if you make me laugh, if you challenge me, if you see me as more than just the grieving widow." "Do I?" Riley looked at me, really looked at me. "Yes. You see me as Riley, not as half of Sarah and Riley. You see who I am now, not just who I used to be, because that's who you are. You're not defined by your loss, even though it's part of you." Linda doesn't see it that way. To her, I'll always be Sarah's wife first, but you're not Sarah's wife anymore, I said gently. You're Riley. Just Riley. And that's enough. Tears started falling down her cheeks. I miss her so much, Harper, but I'm happy. For the first time in months, I'm actually happy. And that feels wrong. I pulled her into my arms, holding her while she cried. It's not wrong. It's human. How do you know? Because love isn't finite. The love you had for Sarah doesn't disappear just because you're developing feelings for someone else. It just makes room. Riley pulled back to look at me. When did you get so smart about love? About 5 minutes ago when I realized I'm completely gone for you. She laughed through her tears. Completely gone? Head over heels. Totally smitten. Pick your cliché. I like completely gone, she said, leaning in to kiss me again. This kiss was different from the first one. Deeper. More certain, like we were both finally admitting what we'd been feeling. When we broke apart, Riley rested her head on my shoulder. What happens now? She asked. Now we take it one day at a time. We figure out how to navigate this together. Even if it's complicated? Especially if it's complicated. The best things usually are. Riley squeezed my hand. I'm glad Ranger found you. I'm glad you found me. As we sat there in her workshop, surrounded by the bikes she was bringing back to life, I thought about second chances and new beginnings. About how sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most broken places. And I thought about how sometimes, when you're not looking for love, it finds you anyway. 2 weeks later, Riley stayed the night for the first time. It wasn't planned. We'd been cooking dinner when a massive storm rolled in, bringing with it the kind of rain that turns roads into rivers and makes driving a motorcycle impossible. "I can call a cab," Riley said, watching the water sheet down my windows. "Don't be ridiculous. You can take my bed. I'll sleep on the couch." "Harper, I'm not kicking you out of your own bed. Then we'll share it," I said. Then immediately felt my cheeks burn. "I mean, if you're comfortable with that. No pressure." "I can definitely take the couch." Riley smiled at my rambling. "Sharing sounds nice." We'd been taking things slow, stolen kisses, long conversations, hands held during movie nights, but sleeping in the same bed felt like crossing a line we hadn't discussed yet. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I'm sure, but Harper, I should probably tell you that I haven't. Since Sarah died, I haven't been with anyone. We don't have to do anything except sleep. I just want you to be comfortable. I know. That's what makes this okay." Later, lying in the dark with Riley curled against my side and Ranger sprawled across the foot of the bed, I felt more content than I had in years. Riley's breathing was soft and even, and every few minutes she'd shift closer in her sleep. I was almost asleep myself when she spoke. "Harper? Thank you." "For what?" "For being patient with me, for not pushing, for making me feel safe." I pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Thank you for trusting me. I love you," she whispered into the darkness. My heart stopped. "What?" "I love you. I know it's soon and I know it's complicated, but I needed you to know." I turned so I could see her face in the dim light from the window. "I love you too." "Yeah?" "Yeah. I think I have since that first night when you showed up at my door." Riley kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When we broke apart, she settled back against my chest with a contented sigh. "This is nice," she murmured. "It is." I forgot what it felt like to not be alone. You're not alone anymore. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Riley humming in my kitchen. Ranger was gone from his spot at the foot of the bed, probably begging for breakfast scraps. I found them both in the kitchen, Riley at the stove, making what looked like the most elaborate omelet I'd ever seen, Ranger sitting hopefully beside her. "Good morning," I said, wrapping my arms around her waist from behind. "Morning, beautiful. I hope you don't mind that I raided your fridge." "Mind? This is the best thing that's ever happened to my kitchen." Riley leaned back against me. "I like taking care of you. I like being taken care of." We ate breakfast on the porch, watching the storm clouds clear and the sun break through. Everything felt different in the morning light. More real, more possible. "I should probably head home soon," Riley said. "I have a client coming to look at the knucklehead this afternoon. Will I see you later? Do you want to?" "Always." Riley smiled. "Then yes. Maybe we could go into town for dinner? There's this little Italian place I've been wanting to try." "Like a date?" "Exactly like a date." My heart did a little flip. I'd love that. That evening, Riley picked me up on her Harley. She'd brought me a helmet and a leather jacket that smelled like her perfume. "You sure about this?" she asked as I climbed on behind her. "Positive." Riding with Riley was like flying. The wind, the speed, the way she leaned into the curves with complete confidence. It was exhilarating and terrifying and absolutely perfect. The restaurant was small and intimate, with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. Riley had called ahead to make sure they allowed dogs, so Ranger was curled up under our table, completely content. "This is perfect," I said, looking around at the cozy atmosphere. "Sarah and I used to come here sometimes," Riley said, then immediately looked worried. "Sorry, I shouldn't have—" "Hey," I interrupted gently. "It's okay. You don't have to pretend she didn't exist. She was a huge part of your life. It doesn't bother you when I mention her?" "No. She was important to you, which makes her important to me. I want to know about her." Riley's eyes filled with tears. "I was so worried that loving you would mean forgetting her. Love doesn't work that way. There's room for both." "How did I get so lucky?" Riley asked, reaching across the table to take my hand. We both got lucky. Dinner was amazing, not just the food, but the easy conversation, the way Riley's eyes lit up when she laughed, the comfortable silences that felt like coming home. "Can I ask you something?" Riley said over dessert. "Anything." "What made you want to be a photographer?" I thought about it. My grandmother, actually. She had this old Polaroid camera, and when I was little, she'd let me take pictures during family gatherings. I loved the magic of it, how you could capture a moment and keep it forever. Do you still have any of those pictures? A few. They're terrible, technically speaking, but they're full of love. You can see it in every frame. That's what your photos have now, Riley said. Love. Even the landscapes. You can tell you care about the places you're photographing. I care about my subject matter more now, I said, looking directly at her. Riley blushed. Are you saying I'm your muse? I'm saying you've helped me remember why I started taking pictures in the first place. To capture beauty. To preserve moments that matter. Like this one? Especially this one. On the ride home, I held Riley a little tighter, pressed a little closer. When we got back to my cottage, neither of us wanted the evening to end. Coffee? I offered. Actually, Riley said, her voice suddenly nervous. Could we just talk? There's something I need to tell you. My stomach dropped. Okay. We settled on the couch with Ranger between us, and Riley took a deep breath. I got a call today, from a gallery in Portland. They want to feature some of Sarah's paintings in a memorial exhibition. That's wonderful, Riley. She would be so honored. The thing is, they want me to speak at the opening, about her life, her art, what she meant to the community. And you're nervous about it? Terrified. I haven't talked about Sarah publicly since the funeral. And now with us, I'm worried people will judge me for moving on. I understood her fear. Small communities could be harsh about things they didn't understand. What do you want to do? I want to honor her memory, but I also want to be honest about where I am now, about us. You don't have to choose between those things, don't I? What if people think I didn't love her enough if I'm already with someone else? I moved closer, taking her hands in mine. Riley, listen to me. The way you talk about Sarah, the way your face lights up when you share memories of her, anyone can see how much you loved her. That love doesn't disappear just because you're building something new. But what if they don't see it that way? Then that's their problem, not yours. You can't live your life based on what other people might think. Riley was quiet for a long moment. Will you come with me? To the gallery opening? Are you sure? That's a big step. I'm sure. I want you there. I want people to see that it's possible to honor the past while embracing the future. Then yes, of course I'll come with you. Riley kissed me then, deep and grateful, and full of emotion. I love you, she said against my lips. I love you too. Stay tonight. Are you asking me to? I'm asking you to stay every night. I'm asking you to move in with me. I pulled back to look at her. Riley, I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But Harper, I don't want to waste any more time being apart. Life is too short, and love is too precious. What about your house? Your workshop? There's plenty of room for both of us, and your photography equipment. We could convert the spare room into a darkroom if you want. The offer was tempting, more than tempting, but I could see the fear behind Riley's eyes, the desperate need to hold on to this happiness we'd found. Can we talk about it? Really talk about it? Not just decide in the heat of the moment? Riley's face fell slightly. You don't want to. I want to. God, Riley, I want to so much it scares me. But I want to make sure we're doing it for the right reasons. What do you mean? I want to make sure you're not asking because you're afraid of losing me. I want to make sure this is what you really want, not just what feels safe right now. Riley considered this. You're right. I am scared of losing you, but that's not why I'm asking. Then why? Because when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I want to see is your face. Because when something good happens, you're the first person I want to tell. Because this cottage feels more like home when you're in it. My heart melted. Riley. Because I love you, and I want to build a life with you. Not because I'm afraid, but because I'm finally brave enough to hope again. I kissed her then, pouring all my love and hope and yes into it. Okay, I said when we broke apart. Okay? Okay, let's do it. Let's move in together. Riley's smile was brighter than the sun. Really? Really, but we do it right. We take our time, we talk through everything, we make sure we're both ready. Deal. And Riley? Yeah, I love you too. All of you. Your past, your present, your future. I love the woman you were with, Sarah, and I love the woman you're becoming with me. How do you always know exactly what to say? Because I love you, and love makes you wise. That night, as we lay in bed with Ranger sprawled across our feet, I thought about how much my life had changed in just a few weeks, how finding a lost dog had led me to find the love of my life. Harper? Riley whispered in the darkness. Thank you for saving Ranger. Thank you for letting me save you too. I think maybe we saved each other. She was right. We had saved each other, and now we were going to build something beautiful together. The gallery opening was in 3 days, and Riley was falling apart. I found her in her workshop at 6 a.m, surrounded by scattered photos of Sarah's paintings, her laptop open to a blank document that was supposed to be her speech. How long have you been up? I asked, setting down the coffee I'd brought her. I never went to sleep. Her voice was hoarse, her eyes red-rimmed. I can't do this, Harper. I can't get up in front of all those people and talk about her. Hey, I said softly, kneeling beside her chair. What's really going on? Yesterday you were excited about this. Yesterday I was delusional. Riley gestured at the photos spread across her workbench. Look at these paintings, Harper. Look at how talented she was, how alive. How can I stand up there and talk about her when I'm the reason she's dead? My blood went cold. What are you talking about? The accident. Riley's voice broke. She was coming to pick me up from work. I'd called her, said my bike wouldn't start, asked if she could come get me. If I hadn't called, if I'd just figured out another way home. Riley, no. You can't think like that. She'd still be alive if it weren't for me. And now I'm supposed to get up in front of her friends, her family, and pretend I have the right to speak for her? I'd never seen Riley like this, completely shattered, drowning in guilt I didn't even know she'd been carrying. Where is this coming from? You've never said anything about feeling responsible before. Because I've been trying not to think about it. But planning this speech, going through her paintings, seeing Linda last week, it all came rushing back. Riley stood up abruptly, pacing to the other side of the workshop. And then there's us. God, Harper, what kind of person falls in love 8 months after their wife dies? What kind of person moves on that fast? A human person, I said firmly. A person who deserves happiness. Do I? Because some days I think this is all punishment. That I lost her because I didn't deserve her, and now I'm going to lose you too. The pain in her voice was devastating. I wanted to go to her, to hold her, but she was radiating a kind of raw energy that warned me to keep my distance. Riley, listen to me. The accident wasn't your fault. You know that, right? Do I? Because Linda doesn't think so. She's never said it outright, but I can see it in her eyes. She blames me. What did Linda say to you? Riley laughed bitterly. Nothing. That's the problem. She used to call me every week after Sarah died. We'd talk about memories, about how much we missed her. But ever since she saw us together, she's barely spoken to me. Maybe she just needs time to adjust. Or maybe she's right. Maybe I am betraying Sarah's memory by being with you. I felt like I'd been slapped. Is that what you really think? Riley stopped pacing and looked at me, her eyes wild with grief and guilt and fear. I don't know what I think anymore. All I know is that Sarah is dead, and I'm alive, and I'm happy, and that feels wrong. So what are you saying? That we should break up? That you should spend the rest of your life miserable as some kind of penance? Maybe. The word hung between us like a blade. I felt my heart crack open. Riley, I think you should go, she said quietly. I need to be alone right now. I'm not leaving you like this. Please, Harper. I can't think straight when you're here. I can't figure out what's real and what's just me trying to escape the guilt. Each word was like a physical blow. You think what we have isn't real. I think I'm a mess who doesn't deserve happiness. And I think you deserve better than someone who can't even figure out how to grieve properly. I stood up slowly, feeling like I was moving through water. Fine, I'll go. But Riley, when you're done punishing yourself for surviving, when you're ready to remember that love isn't a betrayal, call me. I walked toward the door, then turned back. And for what it's worth, I think Sarah would be heartbroken to know you're torturing yourself like this. I think she'd want you to be happy. I think she'd want you to love and be loved. Riley's face crumpled, but she didn't say anything. I left her there in her workshop, surrounded by memories and guilt and the weight of a grief that was eating her alive. The drive back to my cottage was a blur. I kept expecting my phone to ring, expecting Riley to call and say she'd made a mistake, but the silence stretched on. Ranger was waiting for me when I got home, tail wagging hopefully. When he realized Riley wasn't with me, his ears drooped. I know, buddy, I said, scratching behind his ears. I miss her too. But Riley had made her choice. She'd chosen guilt over love, the past over the future. And there was nothing I could do about it. The next 2 days were torture. I threw myself into work, editing photos until my eyes burned, taking long walks in the woods where Riley and I had been so happy just days before. Everything reminded me of her, the coffee mug she'd left on my counter, the leather jacket hanging by my door, the way Ranger kept looking toward the driveway every time he heard a car. On the morning of the gallery opening, I woke up to find a text from Riley. I'm sorry for everything. You deserve better than what I can give you right now. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. If she wanted to push me away, fine. But I wasn't going to make it easy for her. That evening, I found myself getting dressed for the gallery opening anyway. I told myself it was for Sarah, to honor her memory, but really, it was because I couldn't bear the thought of Riley facing this alone, even if she'd chosen to be alone. The gallery was packed when I arrived. I recognized some faces from around town, but most of the crowd was unfamiliar. Portland art scene types, Sarah's college friends, people who'd known her before Riley. Sarah's paintings were beautiful, watercolor landscapes that captured the Oregon coast with an almost ethereal quality. There was love in every brushstroke, joy in every color choice. Looking at them, I could see why Riley had fallen for their creator. I was studying a painting of a sunset over the ocean when I heard Linda's voice behind me. She was talented, wasn't she? I turned to find Sarah's mother standing beside me, her expression unreadable. Incredibly talented, I agreed. You can see her soul in these paintings. Yes, you can. Linda was quiet for a moment. I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything. I do. I've been unfair to you. And to Riley. I looked at her in surprise. What do you mean? I was so focused on protecting Sarah's memory that I forgot Riley is grieving too, that she deserves to find happiness again. What changed your mind? Linda smiled sadly. I went to see Riley yesterday to ask her to reconsider speaking tonight. I found her in her workshop, crying over photos of Sarah's paintings. She was so broken, Harper, so lost. My heart clenched. Is she okay? No. She's not. She's drowning in guilt and grief, and I think I made it worse by pulling away from her. She thinks you blame her for the accident. I know. And maybe part of me did, for a while. It's easier to blame someone than to accept that sometimes terrible things just happen. Linda touched my arm gently, but Riley loved my daughter with everything she had. The accident wasn't her fault. Have you told Riley that? I tried to yesterday, but she wouldn't listen. She's convinced herself that she doesn't deserve to be happy. Where is she now? Home, I think. She said she couldn't face coming tonight. I looked around the gallery, at all the people celebrating Sarah's life and art. Riley should be here. She should be sharing stories, accepting condolences, letting people see how much Sarah had meant to her. Excuse me, I said to Linda. I need to go. Harper, wait. Linda caught my arm. For what it's worth, I think Sarah would have liked you, and I think she would want Riley to be happy. Thank you, I said, meaning it. I drove to Riley's house faster than I probably should have, my heart pounding with hope and fear and determination. Her motorcycle was in the driveway, but the house was dark, except for a light in the workshop. I found her exactly where I expected to, sitting on the floor of her garage, Ranger's head in her lap, surrounded by photos and memories and the weight of her grief. "The gallery opening started an hour ago," I said from the doorway. Riley looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "Harper? What are you doing here?" "Coming to get you." "I can't go. I can't face all those people." I walked into the workshop and sat down beside her on the concrete floor. "Yes, you can." "I don't have a speech. I don't know what to say." "Then don't give a speech. Just talk about her. Tell them what she meant to you. What if I break down? What if I can't get through it? Then you break down. Grief isn't pretty, Riley. It's messy and painful and real. But hiding from it isn't honoring Sarah's memory." Riley was quiet for a long moment, stroking Ranger's fur. "I've been so scared," she whispered. "Of what?" "Of forgetting her. Of moving on and leaving her behind." "You could never
part of you
forget
now.
her, part of who you are. But Riley, she's gone. And you're still here. You're still alive. And you deserve to live, even if it means being with you, especially if it means being with me." I reached for her hand. "I love you, Riley. All of you. Your past, your grief, your guilt, your hope. I love the woman who loved Sarah, and I love the woman who's learning to love me." "I'm so sorry," Riley said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry I pushed you away. I'm sorry I made you think what we have isn't real. Is it real? It's the most real thing in my life right now. You're the most real thing." I pulled her into my arms, holding her while she cried. "Then let's go honor Sarah's memory together. Let's show everyone that love doesn't end with death. It just makes room for more love." Riley pulled back to look at me. "Will you help me figure out what to say?" "I'll help you with whatever you need, even if I'm a mess. Especially if you're a mess. We're good at being messes together, remember?" Riley laughed through her tears. "I love you so much, Harper. I love you too. Now come on. Let's go celebrate the woman who brought us together." "How did she bring us together?" I looked at Ranger, who was watching us with those intelligent eyes. "She taught you how to love completely. And that's the woman I fell for. The woman who knows how to love with her whole heart." Riley kissed me then, soft and grateful and full of promise. "Okay," she said. "Let's go." As we got ready to leave, I thought about how love works in mysterious ways, how sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you really need, how sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone grieve, and the greatest act of courage is choosing to love again. Riley was going to be okay. We were going to be okay. And somewhere, I like to think Sarah was smiling. We arrived at the gallery just as the formal program was beginning. Riley's hand was shaking in mine as we made our way through the crowd, but she didn't let go. "Riley!" Linda appeared at our side, relief flooding her face. "I'm so glad you came. I'm sorry I'm late," Riley said quietly. "You're here now. That's what matters." Linda looked between us, then smiled. "Both of you." The gallery director, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, approached us. "Riley? I'm Margaret Chen." We spoke on the phone. "Are you ready to speak?" Riley's grip on my hand tightened. I don't have a prepared speech. That's okay," Margaret said gently. "Sometimes the best words come from the heart." "I don't know if I can do this." "You can," I whispered. "Just talk about her. Tell them who she was." Margaret led us to the front of the gallery, where a small podium had been set up in front of Sarah's largest painting, a stunning watercolor of the Oregon coast at sunrise, all gold and pink and infinite possibility. "Ladies and gentlemen," Margaret said, her voice carrying over the crowd, "thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate the life and art of Sarah Monroe. I'd like to introduce someone who knew Sarah better than anyone, her wife, Riley Monroe." The crowd fell silent as Riley approached the podium. I stayed close enough that she could see me, giving her what I hoped was an encouraging smile. Riley stood there for a moment, looking out at the sea of faces, Sarah's friends, colleagues, family members who had loved her. When she spoke, her voice was soft but clear. "I didn't prepare a speech," she began. "I've been trying to write one for weeks, but every time I sat down the words wouldn't come. How do you sum up a person's life in a few minutes? How do you capture someone's essence in words?" She paused, looking at the painting behind her. Sarah would have laughed at me for overthinking it, She always said the best art comes from honesty, not perfection. So I'm going to be honest with you tonight. Riley's voice grew stronger. Sarah was the most curious person I ever met. She collected vintage postcards because she loved the stories they told. She could spend hours watching birds in our backyard, making up elaborate backstories for each one. She put sea salt in her chocolate chip cookies because she said life needed a little surprise. A few people in the crowd chuckled, and I saw Riley relax slightly. She was also stubborn as hell. She once spent 3 days trying to fix our garbage disposal herself because she was convinced she could figure it out. She couldn't. But she tried anyway, because that's who she was, someone who believed in possibility. Riley looked directly at me then, and I saw something shift in her expression. Sarah taught me that love isn't about holding on so tight that you can't breathe. It's about creating space for each other to grow. She taught me that grief and joy can exist in the same moment, that honoring someone's memory doesn't mean stopping your own life. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. 8 months ago, I lost my wife in a car accident. For a long time, I thought that meant I had to lose myself too. I thought loving her meant staying frozen in that moment of loss forever. Riley's voice broke slightly, but she continued. But Sarah wouldn't want that. She'd want me to keep growing, keep loving, keep finding beauty in the world. She'd want me to remember that life is precious and short and meant to be lived fully. She looked at me again, tears streaming down her face but her voice steady. Recently, I've been learning how to do that. How to honor Sarah's memory while also embracing the future. How to love what was while also loving what is. Riley stepped away from the podium and walked over to me, taking my hand in front of everyone. Sarah's art was about capturing light, the way it changes throughout the day, the way it transforms ordinary moments into something magical. That's what love does too. It transforms us. It makes us braver, kinder, more alive. She turned back to the crowd, still holding my hand. So tonight, as we celebrate Sarah's art and her life, I want you to remember that the best way to honor someone's memory is to live with the same passion, curiosity, and love that they did. Sarah would want us to keep creating, keep connecting, keep finding reasons to hope. Riley's voice was strong now, filled with conviction. She would want us to remember that love doesn't end with death. It just changes form. It becomes memory, inspiration, the courage to love again. And that's not betrayal. That's the greatest tribute we can give. The applause started slowly, then built until the entire gallery was clapping. I saw tears in many eyes, including Linda's. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of recognition, of understanding. Riley had done more than give a speech. She'd given everyone permission to grieve and heal and love again. After the formal program ended, people approached Riley throughout the evening. Sarah's college roommate shared stories about late-night painting sessions. A former colleague talked about Sarah's infectious laugh. Linda stood with us, beaming with pride. "That was beautiful, honey," Linda said, hugging Riley tightly. "Sarah would have been so proud." "Thank you," Riley said. "And Linda, I'm sorry I've been distant. I was afraid you blamed me for the accident." "Oh, sweetheart." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "I could never blame you. You made my daughter so happy. You loved her completely, and that's all any mother could want for her child. Even now, even with Harper?" Linda looked at me, then back at Riley. "Especially now. Sarah would want you to be happy. She'd want you to love and be loved. How can you be so sure? Because I knew my daughter. She had the biggest heart of anyone I've ever met. She wouldn't want you to spend your life alone out of some misplaced sense of loyalty." Linda turned to me. "And Harper, I want to apologize for how I acted when we first met. I was protecting something that didn't need protecting." "You don't need to apologize," I said. "You were looking out for Riley. That's what people who love her do. Well, I can see she's in good hands now." As the evening wound down, Riley and I found ourselves standing in front of Sarah's sunrise painting again. "She really was talented," I said. "She was. And you know what? She would have loved your photography too. She always said art was about connection. Connecting with your subject, with your audience, with something bigger than yourself. Is that what you feel when you work on the bikes? Connection? I do now. Before, it was just work. But lately, especially since meeting you, it feels like something more. Like I'm not just fixing machines. I'm giving them new life. That's what love does, I said. It gives everything new life. Riley turned to face me fully. Harper, I need to tell you something. Okay. When I asked you to move in with me before, I was asking for the wrong reasons. I was scared and desperate and trying to hold on to something good before it disappeared. My heart sank. And now I'm asking for the right reasons. Because I love you. Because I want to build a life with you. Because you make me want to be the best version of myself. Riley. I know I hurt you when I pushed you away. I know I made you doubt what we have. But Harper, what we have is real. It's the most real thing in my life. I know it's real, I said softly. I never doubted that. I just needed you to know it too. I do know it. And I'm ready now. Really ready. To move forward. To build something together. To stop being afraid of happiness. I cupped her face in my hands. Are you sure? I'm sure. I love you, Harper Lane. I love your kindness, your talent, your patience with my mess of a heart. I love the way you see beauty in everything, including me. Especially you. Will you move in with me? Will you help me turn my house into our home? Yes, I said without hesitation. Yes, absolutely yes. Riley kissed me then, right there in the gallery, surrounded by Sarah's art and the people who had loved her. It was a kiss full of promise and hope and the courage to love again. When we broke apart, I noticed that several people were watching us with smiles on their faces. Not judgment, not disapproval, just happiness for two people who had found each other. Ready to go home? Riley asked. Our home? Our home. As we walked out of the gallery hand in hand, I thought about how far we'd both come. Riley had faced her grief and guilt, and chosen love. I had learned that sometimes the most beautiful photographs come from the most unexpected moments, and together we were creating something new, a love story built on the foundation of loss, but reaching toward hope. Thank you, Riley said as we got on her motorcycle. For what? For not giving up on me, for seeing who I could be even when I couldn't see it myself. Thank you for letting me love you, all of you. Even the messy parts, especially the messy parts. As we rode through the Portland streets toward home, our home, I thought about Sarah's painting of the sunrise, about new beginnings and second chances, and the way light can transform everything it touches. Love was like that too. It transformed everything it touched, including us. 6 months later, I woke up in our bed to the smell of coffee and the sound of Riley humming in the kitchen. Ranger was sprawled across my legs, completely content in his role as the world's most spoiled dog. Morning, buddy, I said, scratching behind his ears. Ready for the big day? Today was the opening of my first solo photography exhibition, a collection called Found that featured portraits of Riley, landscapes from our walks, and the story of how love can bloom in the most unexpected places. I found Riley in the kitchen, already dressed in the navy blue dress I'd bought her for the occasion. She was making what looked like enough breakfast for 6 people. Nervous? She asked, handing me a cup of coffee. Terrified, I admitted. What if no one comes? What if they hate the photos? What if... Riley silenced me with a kiss. What if they love them? What if tonight changes everything for you? Is that what you think will happen? I think you're incredibly talented, and it's time the world knew it. We'd been living together for 4 months now, and every day felt like a small miracle. Riley had been right about there being room for both of us. Her house had become our house, filled with my photography equipment and her motorcycle magazines, Ranger's toys, and the scent of whatever amazing meal Riley was experimenting with. The spare room had indeed become my dark room, and Riley had built me a beautiful desk by the window where I could edit digital photos while watching her work in the garage. Linda called this morning, Riley said, flipping pancakes with expert precision. She's bringing 3 friends to the opening tonight. That's sweet of her. She's excited to see the photos of Sarah's paintings, the ones you took at the memorial exhibition. I'd included several shots from that night in the collection, not just the paintings, but the people viewing them, the emotions on their faces, the way art connects us to each other and to the people we've lost. Are you okay with that? Having those photos in the show? Riley smiled. More than okay. Sarah would love being part of your first exhibition. She always believed in supporting other artists. It still amazed me how easily Riley talked about Sarah now. The guilt and pain were still there, but they'd been joined by gratitude and love, and the understanding that grief and joy could coexist. Margaret from the gallery called too, I said. There's already a waiting list for tonight. Apparently, word has gotten around about the photographer who captures the soul of the Pacific Northwest. That's because you do capture souls. You see people, really see them. I see you, I said, pulling her into my arms. And I see you, all of you. The talented artist, the kind heart, the woman who saved a lost dog and ended up saving me too. We saved each other. We did. The gallery opening that evening was everything I'd dreamed of and more. The space was packed with people, locals from our small town, Portland art collectors, photography enthusiasts, and friends who'd become family. Riley stood beside me as I gave a brief talk about the collection, her hand warm in mine, her presence giving me courage. These photographs are about finding beauty in unexpected places, I told the crowd. About how love can grow from loss, how connection can bloom from loneliness, how sometimes the things we think we're looking for aren't what we actually need. I gestured to a large print of Riley working in her garage, completely absorbed in restoring a vintage Indian motorcycle. This collection is also about the people who teach us to see differently, who show us that art isn't just about technique, it's about emotion, connection, truth. My eyes found Riley in the crowd. It's about the courage to love again, even when you think your heart is too broken to heal. The applause was warm and genuine, and as people dispersed to view the photographs, I felt a sense of accomplishment I'd never experienced before. I'm so proud of you, Riley whispered in my ear. Thank you for believing in me, always. Throughout the evening, I watched people react to the photographs. A couple stood for 10 minutes in front of a landscape I'd taken during one of our morning walks, discussing the way the light fell through the trees. A young woman teared up looking at a portrait of Riley laughing, completely unguarded and beautiful. But the moment that meant the most came when Linda approached the photo of Sarah's sunrise painting. "This is beautiful, Harper," she said softly. "You captured not just the painting, but the feeling of it, the hope." That's what I saw when I looked at it, Sarah's hope. She would have loved this exhibition. She would have loved seeing her work included, seeing how it inspired you. Linda turned to look at Riley, who was across the room talking to a potential client about motorcycle restoration. "She looks happy," Linda said. "She is happy. We both are." "Good. That's what Sarah would want. That's what I want too." As the evening wound down, Margaret approached me with a huge smile. "Harper, I have some news. We've sold 12 pieces tonight, and I have 3 collectors interested in commissioning work." My heart stopped. "Seriously?" "Seriously. And there's something else. I got a call from a gallery in Seattle. They want to discuss a show there next year." I felt tears prick my eyes. After years of rejection and self-doubt, my work was finally being recognized. "Congratulations," Margaret continued. "You're officially a professional photographer." Riley appeared at my side just in time to hear the news. Her face lit up with pride and joy. "I told you," she said, wrapping me in a hug. "I told you the world needed to see your work." "We should celebrate," I said. "We should. But first, there's something I want to show you." Riley led me to a corner of the gallery where a single photograph hung, one I hadn't seen her looking at before. It was the portrait I'd taken of her that first day in her workshop, the one where she looked so beautiful and alive and completely herself. "This one's not for sale," Riley said. "Why not?" "Because I bought it. It's going to hang in our bedroom, so I can remember how you see me, how you've always seen me. Riley, I have something else for you too." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. My heart stopped. "What is that?" "Open it." Inside was a simple silver ring with a small diamond that caught the gallery lights and threw rainbows across my fingers. "Riley," I whispered. "I know we've only been together for 8 months. I know it's fast. But Harper, I don't want to waste any more time being afraid of happiness. I love you. I want to marry you. I want to build a life with you. Are you proposing to me at my photography exhibition? I'm proposing to you at the moment when all your dreams are coming true, because I want to be part of all your dreams, past, present, and future. I looked at the ring, then at Riley's face, hopeful and nervous and so full of love it took my breath away. Yes, I said. Yes, absolutely yes. Riley slipped the ring onto my finger with shaking hands, and then we were kissing in the middle of the gallery, while people around us started to notice and cheer. I love you, Riley said against my lips. I love you too. So much. Even though I'm proposing in public like a complete romantic cliché. Especially because you're proposing in public like a complete romantic cliché. As we held each other in the gallery surrounded by my photographs, our story told in images, I thought about how much my life had changed since that rainy night when I found a lost dog on the side of the road. I'd thought I was rescuing Ranger, but really, he'd been rescuing me, leading me to Riley, to love, to a future I never could have imagined. So what now? Riley asked. Now we go home. We celebrate. We start planning a wedding. Our wedding. Our wedding. Our life. Our everything. 1 year later, Riley and I were married in the same gallery where my exhibition had opened, surrounded by friends and family and photographs that told the story of how we found each other. Linda walked Riley down the aisle, tears streaming down her face. Ranger served as our ring bearer, looking incredibly dignified in a small bow tie. In my vows, I talked about how love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone whose imperfections fit perfectly with yours. About how sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most broken places. In her vows, Riley talked about second chances and new beginnings, about how loving me didn't mean forgetting Sarah, but rather honoring her by choosing to live fully. Sarah taught me that love multiplies, Riley said, her voice strong and clear. It doesn't divide. There's room in my heart for all the love I've known and all the love I'm still discovering. Harper, you didn't replace what I lost. You helped me find what I didn't know I was looking for. As we kissed for the first time as wives, I thought about the photograph hanging in our bedroom, the one of Riley in her workshop, completely herself, completely beautiful. That's what love had done for both of us. It had helped us become completely ourselves. Later, at the reception, as Riley and I danced to a song Sarah had loved, I caught sight of Ranger sleeping peacefully under our table, completely content. Thank you, I whispered to him silently. Thank you for bringing us together. What are you thinking about? Riley asked, following my gaze. Just grateful. For all of it. The lost dog, the rainy night, the way everything led us here. Me too. Though I have to say I'm especially grateful for what comes next. What comes next? Riley smiled. That same smile that had captured my heart from the very beginning. Everything, she said. Absolutely everything. And as we danced under the lights of the gallery where our love story had truly begun, surrounded by the people who mattered most, I knew she was right. Everything beautiful was still ahead of us. Thank you for following Harper and Riley's journey. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming tales, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments what story you'd like to see next. Remember, love always finds a way, sometimes through the most unexpected paths. Until next time, keep believing in second chances and new beginnings.